Where did I put those damn sunglasses at? Oh, hey, we're recording. So, well, the December to Remember continues. Apparently, I'm a very sunglasses-less cover killer nation, and we're here to talk about another top 10 list. We're going to talk about some of the best non-metal, the pop and rock albums of the year 2012. Now, a couple of precursors prior to me doing this. I did this last year, and I think a lot of people kind of misrepresented what this was all about. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be a be-all, end-all list, because whenever it comes to pop, rock, and rap and things like that, I don't get the opportunity to listen to too much. So I really have a little bit more of a narrow list to go off of. So, because of that, this may not necessarily seem to be a be-all, end-all. And because of that, I tend to hear a lot more that is a little bit more on the above-ground radar, not necessarily a ton that is on the below-ground radar, and that's something that I'm trying to improve upon, something that 2012 was meant to improve upon a little bit, but I was only able to make so much headway, and I'm continuing to kind of make headway as I go along. So let's talk about this, and once again, like I said, be forewarned that this is not something that's necessarily trying to be the be-all, end-all list. Let's start off with a couple of honorable mentions that I have to mention. Firstly, The Killers' Battleborn was a great return album for them, definitely pushed their sound a little bit further. I even have to say that Uno by Green Day, not only was it not that bad, it was pretty good. And judging by what Dos and Tre were able to offer, which was, well, I don't know really. From what I heard from Dos, not that much, and well, I've heard nothing but Tre, and I really don't want to, I don't think, because the samples I heard were, I don't know. Uno just seemed to strike a little bit of a chord. It was kind of fun, and I think what really made this such a great album was knowing that they returned back to that trademark sound of theirs, and instead of going after rock opera, after rock opera, after rock opera, trying to have that be a semi-resurgence for their career, which they didn't really need to resurge because it was only one negative album prior to the release of American Idiot. Of Monsters and Men broke through with Little Talks, a really good song, and we were able to produce a great album. The Lumineers were able to do the same thing. Mumford & Sons with Babel is not on this list, but that album is another straightforward, very strong release by that band. And Making Mirrors by Gautier is definitely a release that for the first half of this year was very difficult to put down. But with that said, you still have to wonder what's above all this, so let's go with number 10. Number 10 is Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar, one of two rap releases that actually made this list this year. I don't think I had any last year. I don't think I had any at all. So for there to be two on the list this year, then definitely the horizons have sort of opened up a little bit. The skies are opening up, Hellfire and Brimstone, all that other bullshit. But this is a great album. This is a very artsy album, and I think it's the reason why I have a lot of enjoyment towards it, because it doesn't feel so much like one of those traditional releases that you hear from a rapper, which is them boasting and bragging about what they have done, how much money they have, you know, how many cars that they're able to drive if they want to in one day, how many bitches they could fuck. You know, this is something that has a little bit more of a story behind it. It's almost like a film piece, so to speak, and it's really what it's meant to be. And because of that, this album really opens up a huge window of something that has been done for a while by a lot of underground artists, or a lot of artists that don't get the appreciation from the mainstream because it is kind of out there. So Kendrick has really taken this idea. He's really used the backing of Aftermath, Dr. Dre, you know, Eminem, artists like that, in order to craft quite a masterpiece. And he's still very young. So there is a great potential for this kid. This is somebody definitely to watch. And he's been on the radar for a while, I understand that, but this is an album that's really put him right at the forefront. Number 9, Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos with Rot Gut Domestic. Now, this is a band I've been following for a number of years, and for a while there, this is pretty much the most indie I got. And this is an album that I actually did not even know had come out until I visited a record store in Cleveland, in August. And I saw this album and saw that it had been released in, I believe it was either April or May of 2012, and I had to have it because I've listened to just about everything else from these guys. I've special ordered their albums before. Didn't even think that they would have a new one out after Vultures came out in 2011, I believe it was, early 2011 or late 2010. So I listened to this, and man, this is really, really good stuff. This is a fantastic blend of independent music that has a little bit of a rock-driven sound that has a very soft element to it. It's a very higher-pitched vocal, but just lyrics that are able to really range on everything from Frank Sinatra to Jesus and Satan. So there's a lot of different things on here. These guys are also just a neat group. They really just embody the idea of being an artist. Following them on Facebook has definitely exposed me to a lot more of what they do outside of the music realm, and they just seem like really neat guys. But the album is what speaks for me, and the album's why this is on this list. Number 8, Driving Towards the Daylight by Joe Bonamassa. Now, I've been up on Joe ever since I reviewed Dust Bowl and I reviewed Black Country Communion. I missed Black Country Communion's Afterglow in a review. That was a very good album also, albeit a little bit weaker than BCC2. However, Driving Towards the Daylight is one that has not sold nearly as well as Dust Bowl or some of his others have, but that definitely doesn't mean that it's not strong. This is definitely a very, very strong release that has everything that this bluesman is able to deliver to an audience. These are great songs that you're going to hear live within the next year or so, and he is just constantly writing. I mean, this guy has been releasing, I think it was 11 albums as of 10 years. The guy's work ethic is just magnificent. So definitely looking forward to even more from Joe in the future. Aside from the Black Country Communion release, I'd like to see another solo release in 2013 so I can talk about that one too. Number 7, the second rap album on this list, Lupe Fiasco with Food and Liquor Part 2. I talked about how Creator's Phantom Antichrist was number 1 and really spawned a revolution for me as far as my feelings toward the world today. Lupe was basically able to do that from the opposite point of view, from the point of view of somebody who is looking at what hip-hop music is becoming and looking at what the stigmas of society have really just become over the past couple of years, whether it be in the black community or just in the overall community, and he is responding to this with a fierce message of I guess, hope and peace that change will occur. Not to sound a lot like our president, but it's just a really, really good album that's filled with solid beats. It's one of those things where for some people it may seem to get a little repetitive or a little preachy at times. It may not necessarily be, an album that's going to win, awesome beats of the year, but it's definitely one to look at and definitely one to check out. It's one that really I've listened to on a number of occasions and just really can't put down. So that's the reason why it's on this list. Number 6 is Soundgarden with King Animal. The amazing Soundgarden have returned, and they have returned with an album that kind of combines what they have been able to do before with Chris Cornell's solo work in order to create a weird little vibe that doesn't exactly have that same boasting of the old Soundgarden sound from the 1990s, but really, you have to grow up a little bit and you have to kind of adapt, and that's pretty much what they did. What you have actually with this album is a very diverse group of cuts that is able to exhibit a lot of maturity, and because of that, it may not necessarily go over quite as well as an album such as Down on the Upside or Bad Motor Finger May or even Super Unknown. But these guys have been doing this for quite a while, and they've had a lot of incorporation to their sound. And this is definitely just one where it was nice to hear it, even though I'm sure many people were clamoring for an album that sounded a lot like Super Unknown or Bad Motor Finger. Number 5, we have Wrecking Ball by Bruce Springsteen. This is just a tremendous return album for Bruce Springsteen after 3 years, I believe, of dormancy, and this is one that's probably one of his most scathing and fierce albums as of date. And he's kind of examining what this country has come to, he's kind of examining what this world has come to, and I think it brings a lot of pain, and that pain really sweats and bleeds its way out on each and every lyric that he scribbles down and is singing on this album. There's a lot of there's a lot of pain. There is some hope in there with songs such as We Take Care of Our Own. And there's a lot of songs that are encouraging banding together, and really the best way for us to fight this problem is to actually band together, group together, agree on some matters, and work this out. Else, if we're constant enemies, the only thing that's going to happen is absolutely nothing. It's a great message, and this album, once again, hard to put down. Really, really solid, and got to give him a lot of credit. At number 4, we have the return album of Animal Collective with Centipede Hurts, which actually documents and chronicles them back a little bit toward their older style sound, as opposed to the sound that was heard on the extremely popular and well-received Merriweather Post Pavilion, which is just kind of nice, because whenever you listen to the old stuff and then you listen to Merriweather, it just is an outlier. You know, one of these things is like the other, but not really like the other, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of one of those types of deals. And then with this album, there is that spaced out, weirdness, that avant-garde rock that you hear, just, strange moments that are on this album, really from front to back. They're able to place a little bit of that Merriweather sound and that Merriweather idea onto this album in sporadic spurts, but it is very, very rarely, it's very, very subtly, I guess, justified, and it's not something that you hear all of that often, but nonetheless, you have to give a lot of props. Gary Clark Jr., number 3, with Black and Blue. This young bluesman has just a ton of potential. And I dedicated a whole episode of Rock City to this gentleman, and it was definitely worth it, even though it didn't get that many views, but that's alright, because that's how high up the future of Gary Clark Jr. really is for that genre, not to mention for rock and roll. He's already drawing comparisons to Hendrix. He's going to have contemporaries whenever he really ascends this rank. His album did very well, and there's a good reason why. This is something where, even though it does seem to get a little schizophrenic in there, even though he does seem to try to merge one too many styles and gets ahead of himself, still has that fuzzy, awesome rock out till you drop out sound to it that is going to encourage a lot of young kids, if they're even able to listen to this. I hope they're able to, because if they are, he's going to encourage a lot of people to pick up a guitar. And you're going to get this a lot whenever he does live performances, whenever he does like Bonnaroo's and things like that, and that's going to happen, folks. If you go to Bonnaroo, expect to see Gary Clark. Number 2, Koi no Yokan, once again by the Deftones, double dipping. They were in the bottom part, or the top part of the 20s, whenever we got into the top 30 albums of the year. They're number 2 here. Fantastic release. Man, oh man, I cannot say enough about Chino and the Boys' effort this time around. It's just really, it's fresh even though it's not fresh. It has, Maynard James Keenan's like jizz all over the second half of it, and, the first part is no slouch either. This is just a great collective album. It feels whole. It feels complete. The flow of it is just insane. And as I've said with a lot of these albums, the reason why they're on this list, impossible to put down. In fact, there are a lot of songs on here that you are very muchly encouraged to hit repeat over and over and over again, which makes us and brings us to number 1 with the album that I've probably hit repeat on over and over again, one of the, more often than most, throughout the past couple of months, and the album that I feel is one hell of a startling achievement, and that is Psychedelic Pill by Neil Young. This album has so many little twists and turns, mythologies and varieties to it, that it is out of control. This is 2 discs and roughly 8 tracks, give or take. All depending on whether or not you want to count the remixed or the whatever version of one of the other tracks from disc 1 on disc 2, whatever you want to do. It's an alternate mix, rather, of Psychedelic Pill. This is an album that has all the length to it. It has those long-winded jams. Neil Young has that raspy voice to him. He's making bold claims like wanting to get a hip-hop haircut. He wants to walk like a giant. He's reflecting. He's, contemplating. He's damning. He is very seething. The band is just in full tilt, doing everything in their power just to kick ass. And they feel like long, decorated jam sessions, which is straight out of the 1970s. And it's just a monumental album. And it's one that, even though there's a track here that is 30 minutes in length, that's right, 3-0, half of Light of Day, Day of Darkness by Green Carnation, it doesn't get old. You want to listen to it. It's just magnificent. I would have to give honorable mentions also to artists like Bob Dylan, Beach House with Bloom. That was a great record too. There's plenty of others I'm sure that I've heard snippets of, or even have heard the whole thing of, that I did not mention on this list. Beach House is probably one that would be right there at number 11, we're almost made it. But yeah, great albums, all sorts of them. What are some of yours? I know this list probably isn't the best, and I'm A-okay with that. That's the reason why I like this audience participation variant. Make a video, submit it as a video response, or just list it down there in the comments. I want to know what your best rock albums, pop albums, rap albums of this year are. Let me know. Thanks.